A very popular subject title is the one that we're looking at tonight, and what we're looking at is the Philippines the best place to retire? Well, it's really funny. These questions are almost unanswerable because it really does depend on so many things. And let's just take it from that you have retired here, that you've made up, you made the decision to come here, and you've successfully arrived with your Filipino wife. That usually is the most doable thing, is that you are married to a Filipino. I'm going to tell you why that's really really advisable. It's because that's when you come here, unless you have already made an enormous effort and learned the language, which would be most unusual, you're going to have to navigate various systems which are not done on any sense of Western logic. It's very true to say that the Asian mind it's not wired the same as a Western mind. And it's not racist to say that. It is different. Westerners come over here and they think differently. I always remember at a training session that I did when I was in Australia, and they were talking about the Western versus the Eastern mind, the Asian mind. And they were talking about a company that had prepared a sales pitch for securing a very important contract, and they were going to Japan, excuse me. And when the best man got there, he had his whole thing, had everything planned out. He used a computer and a big screen, and he did the shot point where using the computer, and he was able to make all of his points on that. And he had his whole presentation absolutely worked out, and he did it beautifully to an audience of 6 or 7 of the executives and various admin staff of the company that they were pitching. And they all sat there extremely politely, and they listened with full attention. And when it was all over and he had wound up his point and said, "So that's it, sirs, thank you for your attention," the guy in the middle stood up and said, "Sir, thank you for that, but we didn't understand. Can you do it again?" And the man was faced with that choice, a 2.5-hour presentation, which he was being asked to immediately do again. We're probably talking about how to do the one-upmanship, how to win points, how to get the better of what you may consider is an adversary. And so that probably is part of it. But that kind of approach would be very unlikely in a Western business setting. They wouldn't say, "We didn't understand." They would ply a million questions, but they wouldn't put the man through that whole thing again. Something really devastating would happen to whoever was making that presentation. Well, you will, as a Westerner coming out here and retiring here, you will come up against this reasoning, this way of thinking, time and time again, and you will have to deal with it. And this makes or breaks the idea of, or the question which has been begged here, is the Philippines the best place to retire to? Obviously, in many ways, unless you are just not in love with the Asian way of doing things, of the different culture, of the different sights and sounds, different level of beauty, a different level of ugliness in some cases, and the way of doing things, unless you really don't want to do that, you won't be here anyway. You probably might be here to test the water for being able to financially survive here, where you are perhaps having difficulties in whatever country you were in. There are many other reasons why people come here. One is that the regulation is not the same. It's not as regulated. For instance, when Beth and I bought a motorcycle, it took 1 year to get the registration. A whole year of going in, talking to the sales staff, and I spoke to the girl that had talked to us when we bought the bike, and in a gentle way I threatened her. I said, I'm going to give me your telephone number, and I'm going to text you every day until you make the effort and get the registration for us. And she said, oh please sir, don't do that. I said, well, why don't you call Tagbilaran, the head office, and speak to whoever is in charge of doing this, and tell him that you're having difficulty with a customer and you really need to have the registration for Terence. And she said, no, I can't do that. Why would you not be able to do that? Well, I don't have the authority to do that. In other words, she didn't have the authority. She didn't have enough responsibility to be able to call her superior and say, I need this, even though it was to do with the actual efficiency and serviceability of the branch that she was speaking from. In the West, what would have happened, you would have called, if you were the person in question and you needed to have an answer, you'd call that superior and you say, sir, sorry to bother you, but we've got one customer who's given us a difficult time here, and he keeps asking for the registration on sales number 7. And you would be allowed to do that, and unless you actually called up and said, what the hell are you doing up there? Why don't you give us what we need? You would be respectfully spoken to, and it would be appreciated. You would say, it would really help if you could get that to us. Thank you. So it's different. And it's different right down to the nuts and bolts of trying to do things within the family. Now, when you're a foreigner, and let's say that you have married someone and you enjoy the extended family, which is her family, and you may live in close proximity. At one time I would have said that that was something that I definitely would not want to do. But in actual fact, since I've been here, I enjoy my extended family. And I enjoy them very much. In fact, when Beth's mother, Nanai, when she was taken into hospital because of high blood pressure, I really missed her, you know, because she's the main power within the family. That's why everybody calls her Nanai, even me. And yes, you don't have to tell me that Nanai is actually younger than I am, so how could she possibly be my mother? It's a title, and it's a title that is earned and secured and deserved of our mother, Nanai. That's what the word means. Now, if I want anything done, very often it has to go through a certain hierarchy. I speak to Beth and I say, it would be nice if that fence was put up there, and we probably should get Rado to do it for us so he has some work. And Beth will say, okay, and then she goes and she talks to Nanai, and then Nanai goes to the edge of the hill and she calls Rado. Believe me, not on the telephone. She calls her. She raises the pitch of her voice, maybe not an octave, but not far off it, and the sound carries so incredibly that over across on the other side of the rice fields, Rado will hear her and he will come. And then she will tell him what has to be done, and then she will tell Beth, and Beth will tell me, and I may even have something to do with how it's done. It's different. Now when I went in, for instance, I went into the LTO, the transport office, and I needed my driver's license. I was still on a piece of paper. I say to the person there, I need my driver's license. Is the plastic in? Oh, I go into that room over there, and I go into the room, and I'm standing at the doorway, and a man gets up and says, "Yes, what can I do, sir?" And I tell him, has the plastic come in yet? Just got a piece of paper. And he touched on a box that was on the floor close to me, a sealed box, and he said, "It's probably in there." He touched it with his toe. He said, "It's probably in there. Let me give you a telephone number so that you don't have to come in again until you know that it's available." Well, so it took the best part of 2 years to get my driver's license. And then what happened was that in one fell swoop, they got a totally new piece of equipment where you sit in front of a screen, and you'll have made out you have filled out a questionnaire, and you'll have handed that to the person behind the screen. The screen, you are facing the screen, and you sit there, and then up comes a page, and it is the questionnaire form that you filled in, and it's all blank. And then on the other side there'll be a young woman, and she types in the answer that you've written. So, name, Terence. And unless it's wrong, you simply sit there and remain silent until the whole thing, unless you spot a mistake and you say, "No, it's 1 R instead of 2, and then they'll change it right on there. When that whole thing is filled, you then have your fingerprints taken, and you write your signature onto a touch screen, a small touch screen like this, and you put your signature on that, which is then transferred to your license, I'm guessing. So all of that happens, and then you're told, "Can you go and sit over there?" And you go and sit over there, and you wait, and then in just minutes it just coughs out a fully finished plastic driving license with everything on it accurate. So there's no typing mistakes. Now that touches on one of the things that you would definitely have difficulty in handling if you're like me, and that is that the computer is used, yes, but also the typewriter is used a lot. So you may go into, when we bought our bike, there wasn't a computer in sight. We had everything typed out, and then you have to proofread it. Now here's the thing, in the Philippines, if you have an official document made and it was typed, you better at the time, absolutely right there and then, before you go anywhere, you better check the spelling, because if there is a mistake on it and you don't catch it, like for instance, very common mistake with my name is that if I am called Terry, it's 2 R's, T-E-R-R-Y. But if it's Terence, it's 1 R, so it's T-E-R-E-N-C-E. Now in America, you'll get 2 R's, and sometimes the E the second E is an A, so it's Terence. So there are many ways to spell my name, and I have to be very careful that I actually catch the mistake. Now, if you don't catch the mistake and you get home, you probably put the document, whatever it is, away, and it's only when you need it that you pull the document out. And then, without even checking the spellings on things, you might go to some other department, some other government department, and hand over the document. And then they ask you for your ID, and your ID will be correct. It will be Terence with one R. Hand over my ID, and then they say, but this is Terence with two R's. This is a mistake. So I say, with my Western thinking, well, can you put that mistake right, please? In other words, I didn't type it, so it's not my fault. And they'll say, you have to apply to have the change made, and this is what it will cost you. So in other words, I'm paying a penalty for the fact that I didn't check everything. And you are required to check everything. Here's another thing. If you go into a store and you buy, say, an electric fan or even a water heater, you go in there and you find one on display and you say, this is the one that I want. And a young man will come up and say, ask you, is this the one you want? Yes. And he'll go over to the shelves up on the side of the wall, and he'll pick one out and he'll bring it, and there'll be a cable there that he can plug that electrical device into. So he'll take it out of the box, he'll put it in, and believe it or not, if it's like I bought an electric kettle, they put water into the electric kettle, plugged it in, and we boiled a little bit of water sitting there or kneeling there on the floor of the store. We tested out the electric kettle. Not something that you would do anywhere else in the world, I don't think, but you've retired to the Philippines, haven't you? So many things. The thinking is different, and if you're married to a Filipina, well, you're in for quite a big change, many changes on thinking. Small things are just not as important. So don't come out here with your stress meter on full and expect that those things that you think are, well, it's very important to have this right. Don't expect to find full agreement on that, because it won't happen. So you may think that there is one special place where the keys of the house should be kept. Why do you think that? Well, if you're a foreigner, you'll know that if you don't keep things in the same place, how's another person going to find them? But you will find that the keys will be here, there, and everywhere, and no amount of pointing out why you think that they should be kept in one place will help you. You cannot let logic get in the way of a good story, is my favorite saying while I'm here. So it really doesn't help to come here if you're thinking that this is the best place to retire, and you've made your commitment and you've unloaded all your stuff into your new house. You're not going to change the Philippines. It's just not going to happen. And if you don't get used to that, you will have great difficulty in adjusting to the culture. You have to become more laid back. And is that such a bad thing? I don't think it is. Because as I've said before, there have been occasions where something goes wrong and I'm in a crowd, I'm in the whole family, and I don't know, maybe someone is late and we're waiting to go and why aren't they here? And I'll look around. It took me a while to learn this. I looked around once and I noticed that I was the only one that was stressed. Everybody else sat down again, they chatted, they smiled, they laughed, they went and did something else until the person who was late arrived. The person who was late didn't apologize, nobody admonished her or him, they all just got on with it. Load into the truck and off we go. I was the only one who was stressed. Well, why isn't he or she here? I mean, he knew the time, now we're going to be late, and It's totally meaningless. And what's more, everybody will smile while you're doing this. And behind that smile, they're thinking, what is it about a foreigner that he stresses about something as unimportant as this? That's my guess. So, is the Philippines the best place to retire in? Even in our difficult moment at the time, I say yes. But then, that's me. You may be different, and you may have an easier time than I. You may welcome all what we would call deregulation, the unimportance. The upside, to finish that little story about a driver's license. I didn't have my driver's license. Now, in California, if you drive around without your driver's license, this is trouble. Because if you get stopped by the police, and you probably will, Murphy's Law, and you haven't got your driver's license with you, at the discretion of the cop that stops you, you may or may not be in some difficulty. Here, nobody gives a damn. Nobody cares whether you've got your driver's license on you. If you got stopped and you said, you know, I've only got this bit of paper, and and they look at the paper and say, that's all right, sir, thank you. And that's if they even stop you. Whenever I see one of the checkpoints of the PNP police and they're stopping people, I slow down and then I just put my hand up like that and smile and say hi. Maybe it's because I'm a foreigner and I look like an old fart. Well, I am an old fart. They're not going to bother me. So, while the system seems lackadaisical, the enforcement penalty side of that is also lackadaisical. No one's going to care. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for watching. This is a great place to be.